And she said, honey, you're all right. You're just temporarily out of order.
Before drawing his final breath, the legendary Spartacus, Kirk Douglas, chose not to take his secrets to the grave. Instead, Hollywood's greatest and most candid bad boy left behind a ruthless list, shattering every audience illusion about the golden age. It was a list of the 7 worst lovers he had ever shared a bed with. They were not nameless figures. They were beauty icons desired by the whole world, goddesses of love reigning at the peak of fame. But when the bedroom door closed and the thick layers of makeup were wiped away, Kirk Douglas found no goddesses. He found only cold porcelain dolls, hollow souls, and habits so peculiar they killed all male desire. From a Joan Crawford obsessed with sterility, a Marlene Dietrich who preferred being a nanny to a lover, to a Rita Hayworth terrified of the dark. Let's open this shocking dossier of romance to see a naked truth. Sometimes, the most beautiful woman on screen is the one who brings the most abject disappointment in bed. Chapter 1. Joan Crawford, the wax statue in a sterile room. To understand why Kirk Douglas, the man dubbed the lusty bull of Hollywood, ranked Joan Crawford at the top of his list of worst lovers, we don't need deep psychological analysis. We just need to go back to an evening in 1950, when Kirk's convertible pulled up to the gate of the mansion at 426 North Bristol Avenue in Brentwood. At that time, Kirk Douglas wasn't yet the illustrious Spartacus, but he carried the hot blood of a young man eager to prove himself. And Joan Crawford, she was a monument, a living legend. The press hailed her as a symbol of sensuality, the most powerful woman on the silver screen. In Kirk's mind then, he imagined a passionate, wild night, worthy of both their reputations. He expected wine, scented candles, and soft silk sheets. But the moment the mansion door opened, the first bucket of cold water was thrown straight onto his excitement. What hit Kirk's nose wasn't seductive perfume, but the smell of disinfectant. It was pungent, harsh, exactly like the smell of a dental clinic or a hospital corridor just cleaned. Joan Crawford stood there, welcoming him, not with a flirtatious invitation, but with sharp eyes scanning down to Kirk's shoes. She wanted to make absolutely sure he didn't bring a single speck of dust from the outside world into her sanctuary. Kirk stepped into the living room and was stunned. All the furniture in the house, from the luxurious armchairs and lampshades to the floor rugs, was wrapped tightly in layers of clear vinyl plastic. The house didn't look like a place where a human lived. It looked like a furniture warehouse with the tag still on. There was not a bit of warmth. When Kirk sat down on the sofa, the plastic crinkled dryly, shattering every romantic atmosphere he tried to build in his head. Joan Crawford sat opposite him. She was beautiful, certainly. Sharp features, famous big round eyes, but she sat upright, rigid, hands placed neatly on her lap, like an old schoolmarm preparing to lecture on morality. She started the conversation with polite but distant questions, occasionally glancing to see if Kirk had accidentally shifted any item. A feeling of being turned off began to creep into Kirk. The initial desire was quickly replaced by apprehension. He felt more like a mischievous child being supervised by a strict aunt than a lover. But Kirk still reassured himself. Maybe this is just a habit of keeping the house clean. Maybe when entering the bedroom, everything will be different. The plastic layers will disappear, and the tigress inside her will wake up. But he was wrong. When they went upstairs, the hospital atmosphere still clung to them. Joan's bedroom was also clean to the point of sterility, and what had to happen, happened. The intimacy took place not in passion, but in caution. Joan Crawford in bed was unbelievably dull. She didn't relax her body. She lay there, stiff and full of calculation. She worried about whether her meticulously styled hair would get messed up, whether her makeup would smear. She didn't kiss Kirk with passion, but kissed as if performing a mandatory ritual. No sweating profusely, no natural gasps, only a terrifying silence and the feeling of touching a cold wax statue. Kirk Douglas, a man famous for his abundant energy, felt completely helpless. Not physically helpless, but emotionally helpless. He tried to stir the atmosphere, tried to find a bit of instinctual reaction from the woman beneath him. but the response was only indifference and mechanical gestures. Joan Crawford behaved as if intimacy was a boring chore she had to finish to get to sleep on time for her beauty rest. The peak of boredom was when Kirk realized Joan was staring into space, completely not present in that moment. She didn't care about his feelings, nor did she care about her own. She was simply enduring the mess a man brought to her tidy bed. The moment everything ended, Joan immediately sat up, straightened her nightgown, and smoothed her hair. She looked at Kirk and dropped a sentence that made him remember the tediousness of that night forever. "Remember not to let your feet touch that white carpet. I just had it dry cleaned." That was the last straw. Kirk Douglas realized he had just experienced one of the worst nights of his life. No tragedy, no arguments, simply boring. Deadly boring. The glamour of a movie star had been stripped away, leaving only a woman obsessed with cleanliness to the point of forgetting how to enjoy life. Kirk dressed as fast as he could. He rushed out of that plastic-wrapped mansion, taking a deep breath of the dusty Los Angeles street air to wash away the disinfectant smell clinging to his skin. Driving home, he laughed bitterly. Joan Crawford might be a queen on screen, but in real life, she was just a tedious woman, living in her own glass cage. Chapter 2. Marlene Dietrich Beef Soup Instead of the Fire of Love. If Joan Crawford was a splash of cold water due to unfeeling cleanliness, the second name on Kirk Douglas's list brought a completely different stifling feeling. It was the suffocation of being cared for too much. That person was Marlene Dietrich. In the early 1950s, Marlene Dietrich was not just an actress, she was a concept. On screen, she was the Blue Angel with million-dollar insured long legs, heavy-lidded smoky eyes, and a husky voice that made men worldwide want to kneel at her feet. Kirk Douglas, then a proud young man, entered this relationship with the wildest imagination. He thought of passionate nights, strong liquor, and the deadly danger of a femme fatale. But the everyday reality of Marlene Dietrich was a spectacular deception of his imagination. The most memorable date, and also the most disastrous, began when Kirk arrived at Marlene's apartment. He expected to see her in a sheer silk gown, sitting in an armchair with a cigarette on her lips. But no. When the door opened, what greeted him was a woman with a scarf covering her head, wearing an old apron tied around her waist, holding not a wine glass, but a large wooden ladle. The scent enveloping the house wasn't expensive French perfume. It was the rich, fatty smell of beef bone broth radiating from the kitchen. Marlene looked at Kirk, not with the longing eyes of a lover, but with the worried eyes of a nurse looking at a malnourished patient. "You look so pale. Come in right now. I've been simmering bones since morning just to nourish you." That sentence poured a bucket of warm water on the fire, burning in Kirk's heart. But he still tried to be patient. He thought this was just initial care. And when entering the bedroom, her true self would be revealed. They ate dinner quickly, and Kirk almost dragged her into the bedroom to escape this excessive family atmosphere. However, when the bedroom door closed, the real tragedy began. Marlene Dietrich in bed was nothing like Marlene Dietrich in the movies. She wasn't wild. She wasn't cold. She was gentle to the point of boredom. Kirk Douglas, with strong male instincts, wanted a struggle of emotions, wanted wrestling, wanted sweat and heat. But Marlene treated him like a fragile piece of porcelain. She caressed him gently, too gently, like a mother lulling a child asleep. She constantly asked if he was cold, if the pillow was too high, or if the light was hurting his eyes. Instead of burning kisses, Kirk received comforting pats. His sense of masculinity was completely nullified. He didn't feel like a man possessing the most beautiful woman in the world. He felt like an oversized boy being comforted by his mother after a tiring day at school. The deadly seduction vanished, leaving only the solicitude of a typical German housewife. And then, the moment that killed all feelings came right after the intimacy ended blandly. Kirk lay there, eyes on the ceiling, feeling let down because everything happened too smoothly and lacked highlights. He waited for a bit of afterglow, a bit of remaining romance. But Marlene jumped up immediately. She didn't stay to cuddle. She went straight to the kitchen. Kirk heard the clatter of dishes, the sound of the stove working. 5 minutes later, she returned to the bedroom. In her hands was a large silver tray, on which sat a bowl of steaming hot beef stew. She sat on the edge of the bed, scooped a full spoon, blew on it to cool it down, then brought it to Kirk's mouth, forcing him to eat. The image was so ridiculous Kirk wanted to laugh but felt choked up. The planet's sexiest woman was sitting there, hair in a high bun, holding a soup spoon, coaxing her lover to eat each bite to regain strength. She rambled on about the broth recipe, about how Hollywood men didn't know how to take care of themselves, about vitamins and minerals. Kirk Douglas swallowed the spoonful of soup, feeling like he was swallowing his male ego. He realized that Marlene Dietrich wasn't looking for sex or romance. She was obsessed with mothering. She liked taking care, fattening up, cleaning up for men more than being intimate with them. To her, sex was just a small procedure before the most important part, the midnight meal. Kirk left Marlene's apartment with a belly full of beef soup, but a soul starving for thrills. He realized a naked truth. Marlene Dietrich was only a legend on the silver screen. In real life, she was a devoted housewife who believed the shortest way to a man's heart was through his stomach, and she stopped it right there, not allowing it to go any further down. Chapter 3. Lana Turner, the wax statue under a thick layer of powder. If Joan Crawford was suffocating control and Marlene Dietrich was excessive motherly care, the third name on Kirk Douglas's blacklist brought a completely different feeling. The disappointment of touching a masterpiece only to realize it was completely hollow. That was Lana Turner, back to 1952. At that time, Kirk Douglas and Lana Turner were the golden couple on the silver screen in the blockbuster The Bad and the Beautiful. On the movie poster, they looked at each other passionately, promising an explosive chemical reaction. The audience believed they were ideal lovers, but the truth unfolding in the makeup trailer and hotel rooms in Beverly Hills was a completely different story. The scent associated with Lana Turner wasn't the smell of a woman's skin. It was the harsh smell of industrial hairspray and the waxy smell of thick pancake makeup that she never removed, even in bed. Kirk Douglas, with his wild and rustic nature, entered this relationship with curiosity. He wanted to discover what kind of woman was behind the title of America's leading sex symbol. One night, after the cameras were off, Kirk was invited to Lana's private room. He expected a shedding of layers. He wanted to see the real Lana Turner, not MGM's Lana Turner. But the real Lana Turner didn't exist. When Kirk entered, Lana was sitting at the vanity. She wasn't removing makeup. On the contrary, she was applying another layer of blush to her cheeks and brushing her jet black false eyelashes. She turned to look at Kirk, brilliantly beautiful and perfect to the point of unreality. But as the distance between the two closed, the tragedy of artificiality began to reveal itself. Intimacy with Lana Turner was like trying to hug an expensive porcelain doll without being allowed to crack it. When Kirk leaned down to kiss her, he didn't feel the warmth of lips. He tasted the bitterness of lipstick wax and the strong smell of chemicals. Lana didn't kiss back. She just parted her mouth enough, holding her lips in a fixed position not to smear the crimson lipstick. She lay there, motionless and posing. Even in the most private moments, Lana seemed to be acting for an invisible camera. She knew her best angle, and she kept that angle the whole time. Regardless of the discomfort or awkwardness of the position, Lana's badness lay in a pathological obsession with physical perfection. She feared the messiness of real emotion would ruin the work of art makeup artists spent hours painting on her face. When Kirk, in a passion, ran his hand through her famous platinum blonde hair, seeking connection, Lana immediately recoiled as if electrocuted. She didn't moan in pleasure, she exclaimed in panic, brushing his hand away. "Don't touch the hair. I just sprayed it. It'll flatten out." That sentence rang out in the silence like the shattering of an illusion. Kirk froze, hand suspended in midair. He looked at the woman beneath him. Her hair was stiff like a helmet made of golden threads, reeking of chemicals. Her skin, under the thick powder, had not a drop of sweat, no natural flush. She was beautiful, but it was the beauty of a well-preserved mummy. Kirk realized a bitter truth. Lana Turner wasn't present in this intimacy. The person lying in bed was just Lana Turner, movie star. She viewed her body as the studio's asset, a money-making tool, and she protected it extremely, even from her lover. She dared not move vigorously for fear of wrinkling her dress or sheets, dared not kiss deeply for fear of smearing lipstick, dared not let anyone touch her head for fear of ruining her hair. Kirk's feeling then wasn't anger, but extreme boredom. He felt he was being plasticized. His skin was covered in her makeup powder, his nose numb from the strong gardenia perfume she sprayed to mask any real body odor. There was no communication between two souls, only a collision between a flesh-and-blood man and a painted picture. Ending the encounter, Lana didn't stay to whisper or share. She jumped up immediately and rushed to the mirror, her most loyal friend. She examined closely to see if any false lash was out of place or if the foundation had cracked. She sighed in relief, seeing she was still perfect, completely ignoring the man sitting dazedly on the edge of the bed. Kirk Douglas stood up. He looked at Lana one last time. She was busy using a brush to realign her lips, gazing passionately at herself in the mirror. "Can you close the door on your way out? The draft will dry my skin." That was the farewell from Hollywood's leading sex symbol. Chapter 4. Gene Tierney, Intimacy with a Beautiful Shadow. If the previous three names disappointed Kirk Douglas due to control, excessive care, or narcissism, the fourth name, Gene Tierney, brought a much vaguer and weirder fear. It wasn't the discomfort of being bossed around, but the chilling realization of lying next to an absent woman. Rewind to 1947. At that time, Gene Tierney was dubbed the most beautiful woman in film history. Her emerald green eyes could hypnotize anyone, and her perfect jawline was Hollywood's gold standard. Kirk Douglas, still an ambitious young man then, fell immediately for that beauty. He believed he had found the goddess of his life, but the tragedy lay in the fact that the goddess was just an empty shell. The fateful evening took place at Gene's private apartment. The space was quiet, only the ticking of the clock and streetlights filtering through the curtains. Kirk entered with the eagerness of a man about to possess a treasure. Gene welcomed him with a slight smile, heartbreakingly beautiful but lacking focus. She looked at him, but that gaze seemed to pass through him to look at some indefinite point on the wall behind. When they began to be intimate, strangeness started to invade Kirk's mind. Gene Tierney didn't reject him. She didn't act like Joan Crawford or worry about hair like Lana Turner. She completely relaxed, was docile and submissive. But that very docility was what killed the emotion fastest. The feeling of being intimate with Gene Tierney was like hugging smoke. When Kirk kissed her, her lips were soft but motionless. She didn't respond, didn't bite lightly, didn't gasp. She simply let him kiss. When his hands glided over her exquisite body, he expected a reaction, a shudder, a moan, or even resistance. But there was nothing. Gene lay there, silent as a stagnant lake. Most haunting for Kirk were her eyes. Throughout the process, Gene never closed her eyes. Those emerald green eyes were wide open, clear but soulless. She didn't look at Kirk with desire. She stared blankly at the ceiling, or sometimes glanced at the nightlight with naive curiosity, as if wondering why the bulb had that shape while a man was doing his best over her. This disconnection made Kirk feel like an intruder, a brute disturbing the silence of a statue. He felt utterly lonely, right in his lover's arms. He tried to call her name, tried to pull her back to reality. "Gene, where are you? Are you here with me?" Gene blinked slowly, turning to look at Kirk as if just waking from a long dream. She didn't answer his question. She smiled, a vacant smile, and dropped a sentence completely unrelated to the context, making Kirk's skin crawl. "Do you think it will rain tomorrow? The flowers on the balcony look thirsty." That sentence put an end to all lust. Kirk Douglas froze, his whole body cold. He realized Gene Tierney's mind had drifted to another world, a distant and sad place he couldn't touch. Her body was here, warm and beautiful, but her soul had left long ago. Kirk didn't know at the time that Gene was struggling with severe psychological trauma from a family tragedy, her daughter born with congenital disabilities. He only felt her terrifying absence. For a man living by instinct and direct connection like Kirk, this unconscious indifference was worse than hate. It made him invisible. It turned the act of love into a meaningless deed. Like talking to a wall, Kirk moved away from her, sitting up on the edge of the bed, feeling let down and confused. He looked at Jean. She still lay there, eyes still wide open, looking at the ceiling, hand fingering the edge of the blanket unconsciously, completely unbothered that her man had just stopped midway. That night, Kirk left without saying goodbye. He wasn't angry at Jean, he was afraid of her. He feared the deep black hole in those beautiful eyes, a black hole sucking all life, energy, and joy. He understood he could never fill the emptiness inside Jean Tierney. Chapter 5. Lauren Bacall, when the lover becomes a rough drinking buddy. Lauren Bacall, the next name, brought Kirk Douglas an ironic and laugh-cry letdown. It was the feeling when you expect the softness of a woman but receive the rough pat on the back of a man. To understand this disappointment, we must go back to the lean days in New York, when Kirk Douglas and Lauren Bacall, then still young Betty Joan Persky, were poor students at the Academy of Dramatic Arts. Kirk used to secretly have a crush on her. He was fascinated by her famous "the look," the way she lowered her chin and looked up defiantly. But it wasn't until both had become superstars in Hollywood that Kirk really had the chance to cross the friendship line into the bedroom. And that was when all illusions shattered. The atmosphere in Lauren Bacall's room didn't smell of scented candles or roses. It reeked of heavy cigarette smoke and leather. Lauren didn't welcome Kirk in a sexy silk nightgown. She wore an oversized men's shirt, holding a glass of whiskey, neat, and greeted him with a deep, raspy voice even more masculine than Kirk's. "Come in," issue Kirk's real name. "Don't stand there like a statue. Pour a drink." That beginning signaled an out-of-sync night. Kirk Douglas, with conquering instincts, wanted to see shyness, submission, or at least femininity. But Lauren Bacall was too strong. She was too smart. And worst of all, she was too much like a man. When intimacy began, Kirk felt like he was wrestling with a brother rather than caressing a lover. Lauren didn't know how to be soft. She kissed Kirk with the roughness and decisiveness of a soldier. Her hands didn't caress to evoke emotion. She slapped Kirk's back hard, clamped onto him with surprising muscular strength. There was no grace, no languor. Her every movement was rigid, direct, and lacking the finesse of the fairer sex. What killed emotion fastest was her mouth. Lauren Bacall never stopped directing and mocking, even in the most sensitive moments. She brought the sharp, acerbic personality from film noir movies right into the bed. When Kirk tried whispering romantic words to salvage the atmosphere, Lauren immediately smirked, blew smoke in his face, and retorted with a dry sentence. "Cut it out. Kirk, don't play that cheesy game with me. Just get the job done." That sentence was like a slap in Kirk Douglas's face. He froze. Romance was torn apart. He realized Lauren Bacall saw through him too clearly. She knew him from when he was a dirt-poor guy, and thus she had no reverence or mystery for him. In her eyes, he wasn't the great Spartacus. He was just Ragged Isur from years ago trying to act manly. Lying next to Lauren Bacall felt like lying next to an oak plank. Solid, sturdy, but completely lacking elasticity or softness. Kirk craved to protect, to feel bigger and stronger than his woman. But with Bacall, he felt bullied. She occupied space. She overwhelmed him with her massive ego and sharp rationality. There was no melting, no moment where two souls merged, only two prickly egos clashing loudly. Kirk realized sexual attraction needs a bit of distance and difference. Between him and Bacall, they were too alike, both too tough, too wild, and too masculine. When everything ended, Lauren didn't stay to cuddle or whisper. She sat up, lit a new cigarette, poured another full glass of wine, and started discussing politics or criticizing a new movie script. She treated Kirk exactly as she treated Humphrey Bogart or other drinking buddies, fairly and dryly. Kirk Douglas dressed in utter disappointment. He looked at Lauren Bacall, the woman with the sharpest beauty in the world, and realized she lacked the most important thing in the bedroom: softness. She was a great friend to drink with, a great opponent to debate, but a disaster as a lover. Kirk walked out, feeling relieved as if escaping a stressful meeting. Lauren Bacall had turned sex into a rough handshake, And for Kirk Douglas, nothing turned off the fire faster than realizing the girl he was hugging had the spirit of a sworn brother. Chapter 6. Faye Dunaway, The Madness Named Art. If the previous 5 names on Kirk Douglas's blacklist represented dullness, control, or roughness, the 6th name brought a completely different experience. Extreme mental exhaustion. That was Faye Dunaway, the woman who turned the bedroom into a battlefield of endless psychological torment. To feel the weight of this nightmare, shift the setting to 1969. At this time, Hollywood was undergoing a painful power transition. Rugged, straightforward, old-style stars like Kirk Douglas were gradually giving way to a new generation of actors. Complex, prickly, and worshippers of method acting, Faye Dunaway, fresh from her breakout in Bonnie and Clyde, was the queen of that trend. They met on the set of The Arrangement. Kirk was attracted to Faye's sharp, cold, but secretly fiery beauty. He thought the complexity in her eyes promised a night of intimacy full of depth and intense passion. But he was wrong. That complexity wasn't spice for love, it was poison, killing all instinctual desire. The fateful night took place in Faye's hotel room after a tense shooting day. Kirk entered with a mindset seeking relief. He wanted a glass of wine, a tight hug, and the comfortable silence of 2 bodies merging. But Faye's room had no place for peace. The space was filled with the smell of half-smoked cigarettes and deliberate clutter. Movie scripts torn and scattered on the floor. Ashtrays overflowing, and Faye pacing like a wounded animal in a cage. She didn't welcome Kirk with a smile. She looked at him with eyes rolling wildly, still trapped in the anger of the character she played that morning. When intimacy began, Kirk Douglas realized he wasn't lying next to a lover, but wrestling with a mental patient having a panic attack. Faye threw herself at him not out of desire, but to release frustration. Her kisses tasted of the bitterness of torment. She scratched, bit with terrifying negative energy. Initially, Kirk thought it was wildness, but very quickly, he realized Faye's body was stiff, tensing against the pleasure itself. She didn't allow herself to feel good. With her twisted philosophy, pain and conflict were what deserved cherishing. While physical joy was cheap, the most terrible thing was Faye never kept quiet. She brought method acting into bed, right in the middle of the most sensitive moments. She began to analyze. She questioned Kirk's motives, her own feelings. She turned a sacred instinctual act into a tiring acting exercise. She stopped abruptly, pushed Kirk away, stared into his eyes with pathological suspicion, and dropped a question like boiling water. Are you really feeling this? Or are you just playing the role of a strong man to satisfy your ego? That question cut off all of Kirk's excitement like a dull knife slicing flesh. He was stunned. He wasn't acting. He was simply a man wanting to love. But to Faye, simplicity was a crime. She needed drama. She needed tears, screaming, torment to feel she was alive. Faye started crying for no reason, then switched to sneering, then turned to blame Kirk for trivial things that happened on set. She dragged all work pressures between them, erecting a prickly wall blocking all intimate connection. Kirk felt his energy being drained by an emotional vampire. The peak of boredom was when Faye sat up, lit a cigarette, and began a monologue about the artist's loneliness, completely ignoring the man lying forlornly next to her. She didn't care about Kirk's needs. She only needed an audience for the tragedy of her life. She viewed the bed as a stage, and Kirk was just a living prop for her to practice chaotic emotions. Kirk Douglas stood up, dressing in extreme annoyance. He looked at the beautiful but mad woman in front of him, her hair disheveled, eyes staring glaringly into the void full of resentment. He realized Faye Dunaway was too complex to love. She would rather embrace her suffering than accept a moment of simple happiness. As Kirk walked to the door, Faye threw him a contemptuous look, as if he were a failure for not understanding her. "Go? You're just as shallow as the other men in this fake town." Kirk slammed the door, leaving the storm behind. He took a deep breath of corridor air, feeling relieved as if escaping a madhouse. Faye Dunaway was proof that art can sometimes kill life. She was too busy being a great actress to remember how to be a normal woman. Chapter 7. Rita Hayworth, Insecurity Kills All Passion. The last name, Rita Hayworth, was a tragedy of the most painful disillusionment. Kirk Douglas didn't put her here out of hate, but because she inadvertently killed his male emotions with an unexpected weapon. Pitiable insecurity. To understand this shock, go back to the 1950s. At that time, no man in America didn't dream of Rita Hayworth. She was Gilda, the woman who performed the most provocative glove removal in film history. Her fiery red hair, flirtatious smile, and hourglass figure were the standard definition of deadly seduction. Kirk Douglas, like many other men, believed if he possessed Rita, he would be king of the world. He came to her with the burning desire of a hunter about to catch the forest's most beautiful prey. He imagined a wild night where Rita would burn him up with the initiative and confidence of a love goddess. But tragically, that goddess only existed on celluloid. In the dark bedroom in Beverly Hills that night, there was only a woman named Margarita Cancino, trembling, fearful, and full of emotional wounds. As soon as the bedroom door closed, Kirk's illusion burst like a soap bubble. The atmosphere in Rita's room didn't smell of rich temptation. It reeked of anxiety. Rita didn't pose proudly before the mirror like Lana Turner, nor throw herself at him like Faye Dunaway. She sat huddled on the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, big round eyes looking at the floor, avoiding eye contact with Kirk. She didn't look like a sex symbol. She looked like a little girl who had just done something wrong and was waiting for punishment. Rita's first action wasn't removing clothes or kissing. She stood up, hurried to the light switch, and turned off every light source. She wanted absolute darkness. She didn't want Kirk to see her body. For a man who loved with his eyes and enjoyed admiration like Kirk, this action was like being blindfolded right before enjoying a masterpiece painting. When they touched in the dense darkness, Kirk felt Rita trembling. Not trembling from surging pleasure, but shrinking from fear. Her skin was cold and damp with sweat. She lay there, completely passive, hands gripping the edge of the blanket as if it were the only lifebuoy in the ocean. She dared not let go, dared not moan, dared not express any need. Rita Hayworth's badness lay in turning Kirk Douglas from a lover into a sinner. Her insecurity was so great, it invaded the space. She constantly whispered apologies, haunting questions shattering all of Kirk's focus and excitement. She feared she wasn't beautiful enough, feared she was fat, feared Kirk would be disappointed seeing her bare face. "Don't turn on the light. Please. I look terrible. You'll hate me." Her voice trembled, full of pleading. Kirk Douglas froze. The fire of desire in him was extinguished immediately, replaced by pity, the most taboo emotion in the bedroom. He couldn't continue playing the strong conqueror when the woman beneath him was acting like a weak victim. He felt like a brute bullying a wounded bird rather than making love. Kirk tried to reassure her, tried to kiss her forehead lightly to soothe her. But Rita didn't need soothing. She needed escape. She hid under the blanket, hiding her body even when naked. She had been abused and used by men in the past to the point she no longer believed she deserved love. She was just enduring this intimacy, thinking it was an obligation. Feeling no pleasure at all, Kirk lay there in the thick darkness, listening to Rita's rapid breathing from anxiety, and felt an abject letdown. He realized the bitter truth Rita herself later uttered in a drunken stupor. "Men go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me." Kirk had wanted to sleep with Gilda, the powerful, dangerous, fiery woman. But he was waking up with Margarita, a shy woman who hated herself. That weakness, in real life, might evoke compassion, but in bed, it was poison. It turned the fun into a tired and sad psychotherapy session. Kirk couldn't climax. How can you soar when your partner is trembling with fear? His masculinity was completely nullified. He couldn't be strong, couldn't be passionate for fear of breaking her. The encounter ended in heavy and unfinished silence. Kirk dressed in the dark, groping his way to the door. Rita still lay silent under the covers, saying no goodbye, perhaps sighing in relief that the torture had passed. She didn't hold on, didn't demand, just wanted to withdraw into her safe shell. Kirk Douglas walked out of Rita Hayworth's house with a heavy heart. She was the worst lover in a tragic way. She had all the beauty of the world, but not a shred of confidence to enjoy it. She could seduce the world through the screen, But in the bedroom, she was lonelier and colder than anyone. The dossier of Kirk Douglas's romances closes not with the gloating of a conqueror, but with the contemplative shake of a head from a man who lived through a century. He peeled back the brutal truth Hollywood always tried to hide. Under the stage lights, they were immortal goddesses, but in the bedroom, they were just flawed women, hurt and lonely to the end. Among the 7 screen legends just unmasked, whose story made you feel most shocked and disillusioned? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow so you don't miss the next dark secret files about the most attractive women of a bygone era.